Morning. Today we're in Amroth in Pembrokeshire. Just come down to the beach. Thought with a horrible overcast day, though it's clearing up a little bit, we'd do a long exposure with the Lee filter system, the big stopper. Just going to find a nice location where these wooden groins are and get ourselves set up. Looking at the light, that seems to be the best direction to be heading, or at least point the camera. Tide is slowly on the way out now, so hopefully we can get ourselves in a good position down there somewhere. Got a bit of a wind this morning, a bit of a breeze, make it interesting for a long exposure. Trying to keep it still with the camera, so we need to find a good stable location. And there's a bit of rain in the air as well. Maybe somewhere in this location. We'll set ourselves up now. The first thing I like to do on a long exposure is basically just set the camera up as if you were going to take a shot normally. See what the exposure time would be. At the moment this is about 1/60 of a second, f11, ISO 160. Once we use the timer on this one, the 2-second timer. Let's have a look at that. Check the histogram, no peaking on anywhere, on the blacks or the whites. So that's good to go on that. So we can work using that on a time for the big stopper 10, the Lee big stopper, which we'll be using today. Though quite expensive, the Lee filter gear, you don't get any colour cast. Actually perfect for shots you can get. So we'll set this up. Okay, we're all set up. Pick up the adapter ring on a 16mm lens with a Lee big stopper, filter and holder. Shooting f11, and at the moment we're shooting a 10-second exposure. Get some great long exposure here. The sky looks good. In fact, what I'll probably be doing now as well is put a ND grad filter from the Cocaine Z Pro series. We use a strong one to take out them clouds a bit more, take them down. That's good. We might be able to just expose it a bit further, just to smooth that water even further. Taking a shot on the X-T4, suggest you stick it to a single exposure shot. So this now is a 15-second. Is that a problem then with the tripod? So a bit of wind today. You do get quite a good exposure on the histogram there through the X-T4 with the big stopper and with the ND grad. So very well to control the X-T4. We're just going to Do a 20-second exposure. See what that comes out like. Histogram there. Oh, looks very good. No peaking, no. All the whites, the blacks. No peaking there, so perfect exposure I've got there. Okay, let's move a bit further forward. We're going to do some more. Okay, we've now changed to 16 aperture, f16, and I've extended it to 30 seconds. Looking at the histogram, we'll see exactly how it's exposed. Get a bit of wind here, so holding the tripod steady. I'm using a 2-second timer to avoid any camera shake. I'm pressing the trigger button, or the shutter button. We now review the picture, look at the histogram, we can see there's no clipping, so again we got a perfect exposure. Another 30-second shot. Long exposure really suit days like today. Overcast, quite a dull day. And generally work well in black and white. Again, check the exposure, check the histogram, and you can see there's again no clipping. So we're exposing correctly. What we'll do now, we're going to turn it down to f11. See if we can expose slightly to the right of the histogram. Okay, let's just check again, now you see on the histogram it's slightly to the right, so we're going to take it even further, but there's no clip at this stage yet, so we can take it down even further. And now take it to f8. Two-second timer, avoid any shake. Touch on the trigger button. Again, check the histogram. Right, now you can see we're getting to the point, it's right to the right there. Ideally we'd want to reduce the shutter speed, although then the smoothing effect on the waves would not be so effective. So this is when you would up the aperture, just shutting down the amount of light, entering the sensor. Again, I would only keep maximum f18. The camera has a sweet spot around f8, depending on the type of lens you got. So we'll do this one at f18, 30-second shutter, ISO 160. Okay, just check the histogram, and the histogram is back now without any clipping on the darks or the lights. Darks to the left, lights to the right. We'll try and keep away from both ends to avoid any clipping either on the darks or the lights. You won't necessarily get a even histogram, all subject to what you've actually got in your field of view at the time of shooting. Okay, we've moved a little bit further along. Very careful here with the wind, trying to make sure you got a good footing with the tripod. This one, f16, 30-second ISO 160 exposure. You see the tide slowly going out now, so see how this comes out. Okay, quick check. You can see from the histogram, slightly to the left. So what I'd like to do is reduce the aperture, letting a little bit more light. And we'll go for a f13, 30 seconds, 160 ISO, using the Lee Big Stopper. 2-second self timer on, and 30-second shot. Nice big waves out there today. Always good when the weather's crap like this to come out and do some long exposures. Real atmospheric shots. Okay, let's have another check. Again, absolutely beautiful shots. Very simple to achieve. Follow a few. We now just move a bit further forward. Always got to be careful on sand as well. Tripod stays steady. Try and get something nice into the shot, into the middle of the shot. Go for the exposure. It's not all about the time. Composition is very important. Have it. Again, check the histogram, no clipping on the darks or lights. concerning there. There's a little bit of movement. Looks like the tripod's possibly moved a bit with the wind. So ideally you could do with some weight at the bottom to hold it all down. But if not, I'm just going to push down on it a bit. Just hold it down in place. Hope we don't get any movement. Then we'll go for again another shot. Second we'll go for some shorter exposures so we can get some movement in the water. What we'll do, we'll ramp up the ISO a little bit and then we can reduce the shutter speed to suit. Still to give us a perfectly exposed shot. Just check that one then. Again, histogram's there, good. If we look at the actual focal point, that looks good. So what we're going to do now, we're going to increase the ISO. We're going to take it to 500. I'm going to reduce down to about 8 seconds. And in fact, we're going to reduce the aperture to f11 on this one. Get your focal position, make sure it's in focus. Take your shot. Second shot, so there'll be more movement in the water. You can see more of the clouds. Again, we've got perfect exposure there on the histogram. Just checking there, make sure, yeah, we're in focus there on the wooden groins. In fact, what we'll do now, we'll move down a bit, even a bit further there as the tide's going out. Try and get something a bit more atmospheric, with a bit more motion in from. You've got a leading line going away from your groin, which adds to composition. Got some atmosphere there from the ND filter, from your clouds, and another 8-second shot. Movement going on. We need to okay, what I've just noticed, I had my image stabilization turned on. Always when shooting on a tripod you need to make sure, especially with long exposures, you turn the image stabilization off, otherwise it will compensate being on the tripod. You don't need it on a tripod as long as the tripod is sturdy. So again, we're going to go for a 13-second shot, f16, ISO 400 with a 2-second self-timer on. Focal point, the leading lines, the groins into the sea. Check that shot there, slightly on the dark side, can't see any clipping there, so we should be able to bring that up in post. I'd rather either increase the ISO or reduce the aperture so we can still keep the timer fairly short. I'd like to go down a little bit less, maybe to 10 seconds. Okay, 10-second shot. Again, the histogram, check it, make sure there's no clipping, make sure we're in focus, which we are. The you've got some nice smoothed out sea there with some atmosphere from the sky. Again, what I'd like to do is actually reduce the time even further. So I'm going to take this now to f8 to allow us to do a quicker shot. Reduce again ISO to 250. Lights changing continuously here. And that looks perfect. 10-second shot. Again, check the histogram. No clipping. We're in the centre. Again, it's not usual, or it's not important to keep it all even, but it is important obviously not to clip the darks or the lights. Check that shot, all focused nicely. What I'd like to do now is to ramp it up the ISO to 800, reduce the time right down there. We're going to have a short exposure. Bit of movement in the water now, just adds slightly different atmosphere. 3-second shot, choose the moment. And we've got more movement we'll have. Check the histogram, perfect. And then you see you've got more movement now in the water. Gives you a totally different feel. Still got the leading lines of the groin. We'll move a little bit closer as the tide's now coming out. Make sure we get a good steady support from the tripod. And again, we're going to do the same shot again. So we just want the water tide coming in. Time it well. Do 2-second timer. Then you've got a 3-second shot. And again, we're going to get a different type of shot there. Movement there. A lot more movement from the sea. Different atmospheric shot. What we're going to do is take it further out now. See if we can get some more shots. Yeah, get it steady into the actual ground. Get your focus point sorted. It's good. Just need the water, this tide now to come in, the sea to come in. And the waves it'll do shortly. And we use, there they come, 2-second timer. Again, nice shot. Perfect on the histogram. We'll do a slightly longer 4-second shot. You'll see a bit more movement in the water. A bit less movement in the water, should I say. A bit more smoothed out with 4 seconds. Tide's going out quite a pace now, so we move further down again. Be careful of the wet sand, because your tripod will move. Get this shot now, just here. 4-second timer, there's movement in the water. Again, perfectly exposed. The histogram, keep checking it. Change the composition just very slightly. And again, let's get the water coming in as we go for the 2-second timer now. This is where a remote trigger can work out better, because you can time it a little bit easier. What we're going to do now is try and do a 2-second timer. So less movement in the water, less exposed. Hopefully capture it. Either the water's moving in or out. You get a completely different feel to the shot. more movement in the water when you do this. And you change your settings. Right, we're going to go for a 4-second now. Check the focal point. Wait for that water to come. Wait for the waves to come. Choose your moment. Take the shot. Check the histogram. All looking good. Tide is really going out and out speeds. I think it's now time to maybe change. Definitely a nicer view this way. Maybe move a little bit further out, get more of the rest of the beach in. Move a bit more closer, I think, to the sea. Get that shot. It's important to keep your horizons level. Most important thing I do when I edit a shot is, first of all, get your horizons level. Nothing worse when your horizons aren't straight. Very off-putting. Four seconds. I think we go down to 640, so at 500. 4 seconds. Bit of movement in the water here, hopefully. Just as that wave comes in. Exposure looks good, even though maybe a little bit dark. Just check on the focus points, make sure they're always in focus. Again, do a slightly shorter exposure. Quite dark now. Quite nice and moody there. So I think we need to bring it up just slightly. Go for another one. Very good for a day like today with long exposures. No one on the beach. Beach to ourselves. Just think I might need to change down to a different composition. Maybe more on top of the groins. Get that shot. Oh, soaked feet. Always good to have soaked feet. There we are, great composition. Unfortunately it's blurred due to the water coming up and movement. We need to come a bit further out. Let's try and go that again. I'm going to get that shot. So it's moving in the sand now. We'll be very careful now. The position of your tripod.